Hello. All right. I think we're just wrapping up over on Dennis's stream. And let's see. I think he might raid over here, but yep, here he comes. So today we are going to try to just see what kind of Debian installers we can get booted on the hey people 923. Let's connect over to the S7 machine here. Hello, Dennis. Welcome, welcome. Alusha, how are you, Lucy? Hey, Archon Joe, how's it going? So where we last left off on, what was that, Thursday night's stream? Savage Banana Soup, great name. Thanks for the follow. Welcome in. We got this S7, SPARC S7-2 server up and running. And right now it just has Solaris on it. But the goal here is to see what the state of Linux is on, we'll call it modern, relatively modern, relatively modern SPARC hardware. Now, from the work that Dennis has been doing trying to get this up and running, and some discussions on the Debian SPARC mail list, Tony's probably out there in chat here, Unix Pro. Things are a bit unstable in the world when it comes to newer versions of Linux on newer SPARC servers. So we're just going to give it a try, see what happens. So let me become root here. Now, the plan here is to carve out some logical domains. Eventually, I'd like to try getting Debian going and Gentoo going. So this SPARC server has 512 gigs of RAM and 128 vCPUs. Really, it's two 8-core CPUs, and then each core has 8 threads. So like hyper-threading on Intel processors. So there are 16 real CPU cores available here. So what you can do on these servers is divide the hardware up into separate domains. So we're going to remove CPUs and memory from the primary domain, which is the only domain right now that owns all of the hardware. We'll get a virtual disk server going, a virtual network switch going, and a virtual terminal serial console server going, and then create some domains to play around in. Kiwi Bites, hello, good to see you. Let's see. Dennis says, please put on a flame suit. However, I will watch the smoke. Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen here. This might not be a particularly successful stream. We may just run into insurmountable problems early on, but I'm optimistic we'll get something. I don't know what that something's going to be, but we're going to give it a try. So let's dive into it. The first thing we need to do, and in fact, let me just verify here. I haven't set up any domains on this new hardware yet, but I have notes from when I did some similar things over on my T4. Let's see. Yeah, there's not going to be any, if we LDM, so LDM is the logical domain manager. And we're not running any LDM services on the primary domain yet. So we need to add the services that the additional logical domains will use. If you're on a bigger server, with multiple storage controllers, multiple network controllers, you could actually assign entire storage controllers to other domains, entire network controllers to other domains. And so there's really no dependency on the primary domain or the boot domain to run those other domains. But this is just a smaller server. It's a little 1U box. It has one SAS controller. It has the onboard network controllers. So what you do is you can have your primary domain serve virtual disks and a virtual network switch to your other logical domains. So they're able to share the same network connections, and then the disks for the LDOMs will be ZVols, so block volume devices on the ZFS storage pool, which I have the root pool that we're booting from. That's a set of mirrored 600 gig disks. But then I have a data pool, which is zpool status D pool. This is going to be our, I have 300 gig disks that are in a RAID Z1 pool. So we'll be able to create ZVols on this to be the storage for our LDOMs. A lot of funny words here. So the first thing we need to do is set up our base system, the primary domain here, to run the services to provide, again, those vDisks and vNetwork interfaces and virtual consoles to the logical domains. So this is all documented in these, what's it called? The Oracle VM for SPARC or something manual, just the initial setup, but I just have notes from before here. So VCC is the virtual console concentrator. Sure, that sounds reasonable. Virtual console concentrator. So you need to give it the range of listening ports that you want it to run consoles on. So these will be the ports that you can telnet to 5,000 to 5,100 to get to the actual hardware consoles of the logical domains. So we'll call this primary VCC0, and we're adding this to run on our primary domain. Hey, Drummer, thanks for the follow. Welcome in. Cool. And then we can add the virtual disk server. This, of course, is important. This provides all of the virtual disks. So both the disks, virtual CD-ROM drives, that kind of stuff. And it is able to then use storage on our primary domain. So this is going to be the primary virtual disk server 0, and we're adding it to the primary domain. And then the virtual switch. So this will let us share network ports from the primary domain. It's basically a bridge interface. So we can attach that to a network device on our machine here. So net 0. And we'll call it primary VSW0 and attach it to the primary domain. So now if we LDM list services that are running on the primary domain, perfect. We have our virtual console server. We have our virtual switch, which is connected to net 0, which is an Ethernet interface that is physically plugged into my network. So I'll have network connectivity. And the virtual disk server. So that's looking good. So the next thing we need to do, if we LDM list again, all of the CPUs, so again, there's 16 real CPU cores are assigned to the primary domain. So we need to free up some CPUs to assign to a virtual domain. I think my plan here, what do I want to do? Really, I don't have any plans to do anything else under Solaris on this machine. This Solaris 11.4 install really only exists now to be the control domain for the hardware. But our real interest here is working on Linux on SPARC. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my Debian domain and my Gentoo domain, when we eventually get there, 6 CPUs each. So that uses up 12 of my 16 CPUs, and then I'll leave the 4 remaining CPUs for this primary domain. It does need CPU power to run the virtual network switch to, it's going to be running the Z pools that my ZVols are on. So we'll leave good capacity there so that we're not, CPU limited trying to run these virtual services. So the way we do that, I can do LDM, and we can assign it in terms of number of cores. So set core, and we're going to leave 4 cores available for the primary domain. So you can add and remove CPUs live in SPARC, in Solaris. There's actually some big SPARC hardware where you can literally hot add, hot swap physical CPUs while the machine is running. But of course, all of these CPUs are already in the physical hardware. We're just removing them from this domain. So now if I do a PSR info, you can see now, as far as this computer's concerned, basically this copy of Solaris that's running is telling me I only have 4 cores and 32 virtual processors. And that's because I just removed most of the CPU cores from this domain, the primary domain that's running on the hardware right now. So if I LDM list again, you can now see that we're down to 32 vCPUs. There isn't really a difference between this primary domain and any other logical domains we create. These Sun4V machines, that's the platform that we're on here. When you boot them up, you can see one of the boot messages is jumping to the firmware hypervisor. And then even if you're just running one domain that owns the whole system, you're still running under the same hypervisor that our additional logical domains will run under. Really, the main difference, again, if you don't pass through a real storage controller and a real network controller, is that you'll have these vSCSI, VNet device types that are using the services of the control domain. Okay, so where were we? LDM list. So the other thing, of course, we need to remove some RAM from the system. Now, we could do the CPUs live. The RAM might be able to be removed live, but it's the one thing that we might need to reboot to take effect, because if the operating system that I'm running here has already started mapping pages into higher portions of memory, I won't be able to take those back live necessarily. And I actually just did a big GCC bootstrap in a big RAM disk that I had created, so we might already be sort of past the point where I can peel some of this RAM back off. So I need to think about how much I want to give here. So I'll just do 128 gigs per domain. This is actually going to leave a lot of RAM unused, but that's okay. We'll have room to just have additional test domains, perhaps. So what you do here, I can say LDM set memory. Does this take G as a suffix? And we'll say we want our primary domain to have 128 gigs of memory. All right. Dennis is saying he needs to go deal with the kitchen. Have fun in the kitchen. And we'll see you when you get back. Okay, so it's trying to move memory around in the Solaris operating system that we're in right now to free up, or basically to get everything in a contiguous segment of probably the first 128 gigs of RAM. It may succeed, or it may say that it will do it as a deferred reconfiguration that we need to reboot to take effect. So we will just sit here and wait. Not much else we can do. It may have been quicker if I just told it up front to do a deferred reconfiguration, made the change, and then rebooted. But I'll be curious to see if it's able to do this on the fly. Kind of cool if it can. I wonder if we can see. Let me pop another terminal open here. If we go into do we see a kernel thread that's frantically trying to rearrange all the memory or something? Yeah, Dennis got one with 128 gigs of RAM. And then I was thinking, oh man, I should have bought that machine. That was like a really good price for a nice machine. And kind of regretted not getting it. But I'm happy Dennis got it instead. But then, yeah, just like the next week when I was looking again, another one of these things popped online or popped up for, I mean, it was another like 50% increase in price. It's like 1,500 versus 1,000 US dollars. But it had the 512 gigs of RAM and a couple of disks in it. Yeah, so mine, I ended up, it came with two 600 gig 10K disks, and then I have a pile of these Oracle Sun 300 gig 10K SAS disks. So I split those now between this machine and my T4. People's, wow, that expensive. I mean, oh man, yeah, $1,000 or $1,500 for these dual CPU SPARC S7s. These are just coming like out of support and off lease at a lot of companies, so that's why it's such a low price now. But I mean, yeah, 6 months ago, if you looked for this kind of hardware, it was all still in the $5,000 to $10,000 range used, if you were lucky. There's still a lot of them out there that are being listed for those kinds of prices because the market hasn't quite fully adjusted now to the realities of these kind of hitting that 5 to 7 year point in their life cycle. So anyway, yeah, no, that's a great price for this kind of hardware. So it looked like that actually worked. It looks like it was able to rearrange the RAM usage. So yeah, so now if I prtconf grep-i memory. Yep, so again, as far as my operating system is concerned, I am now running on a machine that only has 128 gigs of RAM, and then that means the rest of my memory is now available to be assigned to other logical domains. You know what I actually don't know how to do is get it to tell me now how much RAM is actually in the underlying machine. That's because the operating system doesn't know anymore. Because as far as the operating system is concerned, again, it's running on a machine with 128 gigs of RAM. LDM list tells me that this domain has this much RAM. But yeah, there's got to be some command or some flag to something that reports the true underlying hardware. Or maybe you just need to go into the service processor at this point. In any case, that looks good. So now we don't even need to reboot. We can... I think there's looking at my notes here. So we do need to enable the virtual or the telnet server for the virtual console concentrator. I think that's what we decided it's called. So we will enable the VNTS daemon. Cool. So yeah, we can now LDM add domain, and I'm going to call this S7 Debian. This will be our Debian domain, obviously. Cool. Now, if you do an LDM list, you'll see that we have this inactive domain, and it doesn't have any hardware yet. Thank you, Hambot. Yep. Okay. So now we can just do the same thing. We set core, and we will give, what did I say, 6 cores each to S7 Debian. And we can give it RAM. I'll give it 128 gigs, S7 Debian. Okay, so we're starting to build out our domain here. And now we need storage. So let's create... let's ZFS create, and we'll just call it like dpool LDOMs, and we'll make an area for S7 Debian. And then we'll create a zvol inside of this, and that's going to be the block device that backs the virtual hard drive for this domain. So that's ZFS create -v. How much space do I have? Yeah, we'll make a 128 gig disk, and that's going to be my data pool, LDOMs, S7 Debian. We'll call it disk 0. Okay. The other thing we're going to need, let's download the ISO image we want to use in this directory here. So this is going to be from Debian ports. SPARC isn't an official architecture for Debian anymore. Let me... Isn't there a Debian ports CD images? Then why am I having CD image ports? Okay, so this is where we start needing to worry about some caveats here. So just to see what happens, let's just start with the latest snapshot. There are a bunch of kernel versions here that I have been warned do not work. Nevertheless, let's see what's available on this latest snapshot, if we have any options. So let's download that guy. How fast is the server here? Not horrible. Okay. Because in terms of these ports CDs, I'm not sure. Like, I mean, if I try and look at... oh, actually, there is a Debian 12. Interesting. There are some actual ISOs here of older Debian releases. Nothing for 11. Do we have a Debian 10? Okay, so we might need to go back to older kernels. The note here I have from Tony, let me find it. Where's my SPARC Linux notes? So he said, yeah, warning about Debian SPARC 64, only use the 6.12 kernel. Yeah, only use the 6.12 kernel. Don't use the 6.16 kernel after the install is finished. And then there's test work happening on the 6.17 kernel, which on the Linux side of the house is at, I think, release candidate 7 now. So in any case, we'll see what's going on here. In fact, I wonder, so is there a 13? Yeah, there's no 13 SPARC yet. So Debian just recently released Trixie, which is Debian 13. And that's where they switched. Let's see. In fact, I'm running on my desktop here. Yeah, so Debian 13 is using the 6.12 kernel. Debian 12 actually would have been an older kernel then. So, okay, yeah, only use the 6.12. So actually, yeah, so I kind of wish there was just an actual Trixie SPARC ports ISO, because the snapshots, I assume, are based on SID, which is Debian unstable, and they will have moved on to probably the 6.16 kernel. So we'll just play around here and we'll see what happens. Okay, so this is still downloading, a minute and a half left. But it could be that we end up having to go back to an older snapshot from before they switched over to the 6.16 kernel. All right, Drummer says, I had a friend pick up an SGI Octane for me at VCF Midwest last year. Very cool. After working, getting and servicing this couple of weeks. Yeah, the SGI gear, that was always fun. The only SGI gear I have is my Indie. So that's an old 40... Do I have a 40 MIPS R4600 or 4200? I know I don't have the top end processor. I think you could upgrade it to a MIPS R5000 I think, yeah, because I think it had a little 5K badge. But anyway, I'm on whatever the MIPS R4 something processor is. And those are fun little boxes. I have actually have older AIX, not AIX, IRIX, SGI IRIX install media, the older version of IRIX that runs well on that older, slower hardware. Every once in a while, I pull it out of my closet and get it back up and running, mostly because you can then recreate the scene in Jurassic Park where Lexi sits down at that computer and says, I know this, it's a Unix system. And that 3D Park Systems interface, that was a little demo program from SGI, FSN, File System Navigator, to navigate the file system in that 3D view. And the buildings were just actually directories, and it showed you basically the height of that cube, or the cuboid, was how much space was used in that folder. So the production designers for Jurassic Park would have gone in and made a folder named whatever, security or raptor paddock, or whatever the labels were, right? They would have laid it out that way, filled it up with some files to make them tall buildings, and then they, on film in the movie, right, they said, oh yes, this is our interface for navigating and managing the park systems. Which, right, it was a clever use of, I mean, all these guys in Hollywood that do those kinds of things are just super creative, and it was a clever use of that little 3D demo program to adapt it and use it as something that they could say was something developed there at Jurassic Park to manage their systems. So kind of fun. If you like IRIX, check out Mac's interactive desktop environment for Linux. And some talk porting to BSD as well. Nice. Yeah, you could type 4 letters and get 50 commands. Well, yeah, that's typical movie, Matrix type, leet hacksaw stuff, right? What did she say when her little brother Timmy was talking to her? She's like, "I'm not a nerd, I'm a hacker," or something like that. Okay, we got that ISO. So what do we have here? Yep, perfect. So what we do here, we need to... So we were creating our logical domain. Yeah, I've looked at a variety of messages on the mail list there. Let's see, which one is that? That's the one you posted. Yep. Because yeah, you're trying to net boot this thing over NFS. But we are going to take the easy path and just put the CD in the virtual CD-ROM drive of our logical domain. Yeah, good discussions recently on the Debian SPARC mail list, trying to sort out. So sort of zooming out, a bit of history here. The mainline Linux kernel, it looks like it's gotten a little bit unmaintained in terms of the SPARC world. But a while ago, Oracle Linux doesn't make releases for SPARC anymore. They only release Oracle Linux for AMD 64 and ARM 64. But there was a time when Oracle Linux, probably when it was in the RHEL 6 days, also maintained Oracle Linux for SPARC. And Oracle, just to keep their current hardware working, did do a good amount of work patches for the Linux kernel for their own Oracle UEK Unbreakable Enterprise kernel, the silly Oracle thing. So they had a lot of patches on their kernel that I don't think were ever upstreamed, but their Oracle's kernel was GPL just like every other kernel, so the sources are available. And now it looks like there's some folks on the list. They're going through the old Oracle patches to the Oracle kernel and trying to start looking at, okay, what do they do? What are they fixing? And can we get these things in a state where they can be upstream so that the actual real upstream Linux kernel can get back to a better point in terms of SPARC support, especially for the newer hardware. But then also it looks like there's perhaps some problems on even the older hardware that snuck into recent kernels. So where were we? We need to add more stuff to our logical domain here. So we can add the network. So add VNet. We'll call it VNet1. And we want to use our primary vSwitch 0. And we want to add that to S7 Debian. Okay, so now our domain has network hardware. And then we need to add a virtual disk device. So I can add its virtual disk server device. And here I give it the path on the domain running the virtual disk server that we want to use to back this disk. So that's going to be my zvol. So that's under dev zvol disk, and then this will be the ZFS name. So that we called this dpool. I think I called it LDOMs. Yeah, LDOMs, and then S7 Debian disk 0. And this is creating the entry in the virtual disk server. Only hour. Yeah, have a good one out in the real world, Dennis. You will certainly hear about how this goes later, one way or the other. So I want to add this to my virtual disk server that's named primary VDS 0, and I just have to give it a name. So I'm going to call this we'll come up with a naming scheme here so we can be consistent. So this is going to be the S7 Debian, so the domain name, and then the device name, so disk 0. And we're adding this on the disk server because you can have a lot of virtual disk servers, but for our purposes, we just need one. The disk server is primary VDS 0. And then we'll do something very similar to add the ISO we just downloaded. So add VDS dev, and this time it's going to be dpool LDOMs S7, and what was that ISO called? Just Debian 12 SPARC 64 netinst. Okay. And similarly, we'll call this S7 Debian dash, and we're going to call this for now, I'm just going to call it ISO. And as we have to try different images, if we do, I'll figure that out later. And then this is going to be at that primary VDS 0. Cool. So now the virtual disk server has these virtual disks available. We need to attach them to this domain. So LDM add vdisk, disk 0, and we use the name of the virtual disk, and we add this to S7 Debian. And then similarly, LDM add vdisk CD-ROM, and that's going to be this S7 Debian ISO at S7 Debian. So that should be all of our hardware. Now, each LDOM has its own open boot, open firmware stuff. So all of those NV variables and everything we can set. So I'm going to do LDM set var auto boot, if I can type. And that's going to be equal false on S7 Debian. I probably need to escape that question mark, or the shell is going to try and do something with it. Okay, just to make sure that we get to the firmware OK prompt. Let's move this window out of the way for the moment. And how many, did I get my split right here? Now let's make sure that we have 80 columns at least in each of these. Perfect, okay. So we should be able to start this domain. So I can do LDM list bindings S7 Debian. And we can see, okay, we have CPUs, we have RAM. It's going to have its own MAC address. This stuff probably doesn't matter. We are using whole cores. Okay, so yeah, we've already set our firmware variable here. We have a network interface, and we have 2 disks at these disk names. So that all looks good. So now that we have the configuration defined, we need to bind it to the physical hardware. So to do that, you just say LDM bind S7 Debian. Okay. Now, this message here, variables or keys, be lost over power cycle. All of this is just happening in temporary config space right now. The actual domain configurations are persisted across power cycles of the underlying hardware by storing them in the service processor. So the service processor is actually managing that firmware virtualization system that the actual server runs. So eventually we'll need to remember to save this to the service processor, or if I power off the machine and power it back on, we'll actually lose all of this domain configuration we just did. Okay, but now if I LDM list, you can see that we are bound. So this configuration is now bound to this machine. It has taken its CPU and memory capacity. Before I bind, I would be able to over provision all of the CPUs and memories. It's not until I actually bind it to the machine that it takes the resources for that logical domain. So you can have a lot more logical domains than you're actually running all at once. You just bind them and unbind them from the hardware to free up the real resources to be used for the domain. It's also been assigned a virtual console port. So I think if the virtual console server only listens on localhost by default. There's some, of course, SMF config somewhere you can change, but if I go to this machine again, actually, I don't need to be root for that. If I telnet localhost port 5000, yep, so the machine is off, but the virtual console server is able to connect me to its serial console. So at this point, this window over here on the right, and my head is probably going to be blocking some of this. We'll rearrange this in a minute. This is as if I just plugged my serial cable into my powered off machine, and I'm just waiting to turn it on. So let's turn it on. LDM start S7 Debian. Then just like that, entering open boot, and it's, of course, running the same firmware as every other logical domain on this machine, including the primary domain. So it's a SPARC S7-2. And even at boot, right, it thinks it has 128 gigs of RAM. And I thought I set auto boot to false, but it looks like it's trying to boot off the network here. Oh, it's because I spelled auto wrong. I said auto boot equals false. Yeah, yeah, Zeeb free. That was the problem. So how do I do? So if I do, I have to be careful here because tilde is both my SSH client, but then also this virtual console. But if I do two tildes, question mark. Yes, so I can send a break with tilde pound. So again, two tildes pound. There we go. And now we're at the OK prompt. So first things first, set in auto boot and spell it correctly to false. There we go. Yeah, people's. Yeah, I did mean auto. I just typed it wrong. So if you do something like probe scuzzy all, there's no scuzzy there. How about show disks? Yep, so we have our virtual devices channel 1, disk at 1, and virtual devices at 100, disk 0 and 1. I'm guessing it actually, is it dev alias? Yes, so it creates aliases for us using the names that we assigned. So that's convenient. So I should be able to say boot CD-ROM. Moldy bruh. Gentoo is something else I want to get running on this machine. I have left plenty of RAM and CPUs so that I can have an equivalently sized Gentoo logical domain. So worry not. Worry not, my friend. Okay, boot CD-ROM. What is going to happen? Well, grub works. I have no idea what kernel version this snapshot uses, but let's do, actually, if we do command line edit. Oh, how do I show edit the commands? E. Well, that's not. Oh, these are just referencing something in the config I can't actually see. Whatever boot one is. I don't know if we can see the whole config file from. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Let's do an expert install, and let's just see what we get. Well, that works. Okay, this is this is a lot better than it just immediately panicking. Oops, that's not what I wanted. How do I? Is it going to be Control A2? Yeah, it's running screen. Okay, uname -A. Tony says the default is the 612 kernel. It looks like we got the 616 kernel now on the latest snapshot. So this might be relatively unstable, but we'll see if it can at least get through the install, I guess. I wonder what my... Yeah, so this was on the mail list. I saw some of the patches that they were looking back on Oracle's kernel, and the Linux kernel doesn't know about the S7 processor. It only knows about the M7 processor. The M7 processor is sort of the even bigger, badder version of the S7 processor. But yeah, so 48 virtual threads. Okay, so I mean, yeah, this is not awful. Would Slackware run? I mean, maybe. I don't know what kernel Slackware is currently on. To be honest, the last time I used Slackware was probably in the mid 90s. It was the first Linux distro I ever installed, and I downloaded a few 3.5-inch floppy disk images for the Slackware installer and fed them into a 386 box to install it. So Slackware definitely has a special place in my heart, of course, as of that era. That would have been a common first introduction to Linux. But I am pretty much a 100% all Debian all the time person at this point. All of my servers run Debian stable. My desktop machine, even now, I'm just running Debian stable. Okay, what do I want to do here? So I want to get to the point where I can SSH in and do the install from SSH as quickly as I can, because the this virtual console and the Debian installer, I think I've had some weird problems with before. Yeah, so Unix Pro Tony says, guessing you're using a different ISO version from what I used. It's possible. I downloaded the latest snapshot, which was, oops, I closed my Debian window, or I closed my, although it was from August, so it's about a month old. But we'll see how far we get here. Okay, yeah, language, English is good. US English, US English. Sure, I don't need other locales. No, I don't care about that. We do need to detect the installation media. Cool. Load the installer commands. Okay, so in here we should have the... This is not a high contrast color scheme I have for these particular colors in my Xterm. Network console. I think that's the one I need. So let's see what happens here. Of course, no surprise here, but if I do LDM list at this point, yeah, this is active, and it'll tell you, how much CPU usage each of your partitions is using. Okay, detect network hardware. I need an IP address for this machine. Let me look over in my IP address spreadsheet. And okay, this is going to be in the .87 network. So .87, we can give this guy dot 14. I don't think I have a dot 14. Yep. Okay. So 192.168.87.14 is going to be S7 Debian. 192.168.87.14/24. Gateway is correct. The name server is going to be 42.2 and 192.168.64.2. Yes, that looks correct. Okay. Hostname S7 Debian. lab.matlisten.org. Yes, I want to continue installation remotely using SSH. Needs a password. I will just make it password. Sure. Password. Okay, continue installation. So let's get out of the S7 here, and let's SSH as installer at 192.168.87.14. Excellent. We'll continue expert mode. So we've already done all of this. I guess the next step will be set up users and passwords. Yes. And give it a root password. You know, Tony, I wonder if there's any relationship between your boot problem and the latest CBE on your hardware and differences in the Linux kernel booting as well. Like, I wonder if even on the same kernel, we'd be getting different behaviors for whatever the same reason is that on the same Solaris kernel, we're getting different behavior. Okay. But I mean, yeah, I wish there was more information about what that bug actually was. Yeah, that's fine. So disks, we should see that 128 gig virtual disk. So in your case, Tony, it just doesn't boot at all if you don't go back to the 612 kernel. Yeah, so dev vdisk A. So this is the disk provided by the virtual disk server. And the nice thing about this is because that whole disk is just a zvol on my ZFS storage array, we can shut this machine down and just snapshot that volume during reboot. It panics. Oh, so maybe, so after the install, if you reboot into the kernel it installs. So it's still a possibility that the real kernel with like the real initRD that gets installed, which may be different than the kernel that the installer ISO uses. So we still may hit problems here. Anyway, what I was saying is, yeah, we can just shut down this domain and snapshot that disk and clone that disk easily because it's just a zvol under ZFS. Okay, yeah, so this is the correct way to handle grub on GPT SPARC hardware. And it's creating... Okay, yeah, this is wrong. So it's trying to create a swap partition that is the size of my RAM, which is 128 gigs. And that is only leaving 4.7 gigs for the root file system. That is not what I want at all. So we're going to say no to this. We are going to say no to this. Do I even want swap at all on this? I guess I should have just a nominal amount of swap. Do I care? I mean, I know there's reasons to just have even a small amount of swap, but yeah, sure, whatever will be good. So let me create a 16 gigabyte swap. And we'll say that's a swap area. And then the rest is going to be our root partition. Okay, ext4 is fine, mount point / there we go. That's kind of funny. If I install Debian on x86, be it VMs or real hardware, it definitely doesn't try and make 128 gigs of swap on my machines. Most of my machines have at least 128 gigs of RAM now. Yeah, it mostly is able to sort of limit that. So that was kind of funny. But that all looks good. Yes, we'll write the changes. Okay, install the base system. But yeah, based on the notes from Tony earlier, hopefully it gives us a choice of kernels. Excuse me. Kernels to install. We'll see what's on offer here on this latest snapshot. Okay. Yeah, now we wait. We can, what's over on the log? Yep, just doing depackage stuff. Looks like it's working out some circular dependencies there. That's all fine. Because, yeah, again, this is 6.16.3 plus deb 14. Okay. Okay, so you were also trying it on the bare metal hardware. So again, you know, for the processor, for the system architecture, that part shouldn't be a problem. The difference would be, you know, if the SAS disk controller or one of the network controller drivers is where potentially the bug is. That's where the LDOM versus control domain would show up as a potential problem or a potential difference, which is certainly possible. On my SPARC T4 server, when I got it, it had an older firmware, and Linux, and I tried a couple of, or you know, handful of different Linux distros on that T4. Linux in an LDOM using the V switch, networking would just stop working. It would work when the machine booted, but then you start doing some network traffic. Interesting. So yeah, 6.16 is the only choice I have here. So my snapshot is too new and no longer offers the 6.12 kernel. So we will just see. It's weird that there's a separate SPARC 64 and SPARC 64 SMP build. And maybe that's it. Is this installer? I wonder if this ISO is using just the SPARC 64, but the SMP kernel is where some of the trouble is. I think somebody mentioned that on the mail list. Either something Dennis ran into, or maybe you did. Well, I'm going to live life on the edge. I'm just going to install the kernel meta package for SMP. But anyway, so about the virtual network thing, in the end, it turned out to be, I think, a firmware bug. I was finally able to get much newer firmware for my T4 box, and that actually fixed the virtual network, the VNet service problem under Linux logical domains. So, yeah, when I say you know, you can't really, there's no difference in the hardware between the, you know, running in the LDOM versus running on bare metal. Obviously, there's caveats there, and I'm probably overstating it. But again, it's not that there's differences in the hardware. It's that when you're running it on, you know, as the primary domain, that domain happens to own the SAS controller, right? If I had another SAS controller, I could pass in, you know, I could attach that SAS controller to a different domain and not use the virtual disk service. It's all still bare metal. But anyway, that's none of this is all that important. InitRD, I mean, a targeted initRD is fine, I would think. I'll be very curious if this boots. We may need to go back and reinstall with the non-SMP kernel to see if that works on 6.16. We're getting into, I mean, this is all ground that the guys on the mail list have been through, I think, and have run into trouble, but we'll just see what happens here. If it panics, okay, yeah. Because, yeah, there are, obviously we can go back to older, all the older snapshots are still here, so we can always go back to when it would have been the 6.12 kernel if we need to and install that one. Okay, configure package manager. No, yes. Yeah, for these ports, there's only just going to be the one mirror here. Perfect. Yeah, I don't know if there's any non-free firmware needed for SPARC, but yeah, we'll take all that stuff. Yeah, we'll take the source repos. Why not? Because yeah, if we can get a kernel that boots and is at least somewhat stable, right? Stable enough to get through a full compile of the kernel, then we'll have our working kernel that we know we can always boot into, and then from which we can build the release candidate kernels and all that. We can try patches, all that stuff. But yeah, we need a working, relatively stable kernel or Linux install running Spark, because I really don't want to try and bother doing like a kernel cross compilation from one of my x86 boxes or something. That would just be more annoying than this whole project really warrants. Do, 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 do. I'm not sure. Do the normal Debian mirrors tend to carry the ports snapshots? Debian. Yeah, I don't think the ports are mirrored to all of the official Debian mirrors, because like I have a 5 gigabit internet connection to local Debian mirrors. This would be over just in a flash, but although it has speeded up on these last packages. But yeah, I think there's really only this one distribution point for the ports. Okay, we got the packages. Systemd. Now, if Dennis is listening, he's going to stop being my friend, but I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it when it's being recorded on the internet, so I can't back out of this. But strictly as an init system, as an init manager, I'm actually fine with systemd. In fact, as an init system, systemd is better than that SMF monstrosity that they came up with for Solaris. And as an init manager, systemd has features I like. I make use of its like templated user services, where you start it with a different, service at different name, and I can run multiple services that are parameterized in the same things. Like, just once you learn the basics of systemd, it's fine. What I really don't like is everything beyond the init manager that the systemd project is trying to do. And it's sort of, right, it's trying to subsume everything else in Linux, right? I don't need systemd timed. Classic NTPD is fine. I don't want systemd network manager. I want Debian's etc network interfaces file. I don't want their whatever their new run. I forget what it's even called, but it's like, no. I use sudo. sudo's fine. It's the tendrils that it's trying to get in everything else, right? Even journal D, it's like, no, I don't want binary log databases. I want text log files, and I can manage them with log rotate D. So what am I doing here? Is it select install? No automatic updates. So yeah, I mean, purely as an init system, I'm okay with systemd these days. Yes. So the popularity contest, always say yes here, especially when you're like some of us and we run on odd, interesting hardware, just so that the Debian project knows, hey, there are people out here using this stuff, right? Your efforts to keep it running on this different hardware is appreciated because we're still out here. We still love the fact that Debian actually runs on these things. So anyway, that was just my systemd comment. But yeah, SSH server's good. Standard system utilities is good. We don't want any other stuff. That's perfect. Okay, now we'll just download and install more packages. Yeah, but what is it being used for fun or because it can still do stuff? Yeah, I mean, people, and by people, I mean companies, right? Because they're the ones that have the money to buy new SPARC servers off the shelf. But companies buying SPARC servers aren't buying them to run Linux. They're buying SPARC servers because they have something that still runs on Solaris on SPARC that they need it for. So I am guessing the commercial market for Linux on SPARC is very, very small to entirely non-existent. So we do this kind of stuff for fun, of course. But it's nice to be able to get this kind of hardware, right? Solid. And again, for the workloads it runs, for the workloads it's designed for, the 8 threads per core, 8 cores per processor, the architecture is still nice. And so for us to be able to get this relatively cheaply, right, these S7 machines just now started becoming relatively inexpensive. If you keep your eye out for that $1,000, $1,500 range, it's cool to be able to run Linux on them because it's like my Power 9 box. I could just run an x86 Power 9 or an x86 Linux box to do the same thing, but I was able to get like a really nice enterprise class Power 9 machine, stick it out in a data center, and I run a lot of my personal production workloads on that, running Linux on it. Now, again, IBM is still very actively maintaining Linux for Power. Power is sadly, unlike SPARC, an actual relevant used architecture and platform for some reason, because IBM's still pumping money into it. Right, so it's nice in that regard, but then it's also nice just to have these systems available to help, test. Are all these things that are supposed to be relatively cross-platform, architecture independent, still actually architecture independent? Yeah, so for something like Linux on SPARC, it's 99.9% or higher just guys having fun with it. So that's also why there isn't a lot of money behind it to to keep it working well. But what else are you going to do for fun? All right, install the grub bootloader. That shouldn't have any drama. And yeah, drummer, you mentioned Arkanoe. Yeah, I bought an Arkanoe license just kind of for fun, to support what they're doing. And with some of my old IBM mainframe hobby stuff, it's just kind of fun to run PCOM on OS2. So yeah, I haven't played with it recently, but it's fun to see the technologies, the operating systems, the ideas that have led up to where we are today. May I ask what you do for your profession? Yeah, so my professional life has mostly been in software. Most of it in the healthcare IT industry. But now for the last, really coming up on about 5 years, I actually work for a company called Sandfly Security, and we do Linux threat detection, so securing your Linux endpoints. So now, yeah, I'm kind of lucky in that I have no Windows in my life. We are 100% a Linux company. Our product only runs on Linux, and able to just do my day job completely from Linux as well. So yeah, so I'm the chief architect over for that that Linux security threat detection company. Agentless is kind of what we do that's different. So unlike like antivirus programs or the agents from other EDR, enterprise detection response, we don't install anything on the system because that famously crashes systems. Like look at the whole um, like when all of the Windows servers went down because an EDR agent happened to have a bug. So we just SSH into the box, do all of our investigations, and then log out. And there's basically no trace we were ever there. So it's kind of a different approach. It's interesting, right? It's interesting work figuring out how to do all that stuff from user space. Change Deb. I don't think we need to do any of this other stuff. Priority, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I think we can just... so I installed the bootloader. Did it ask what disk I wanted on? Or I guess, yeah, no, in the SPARC world, it just goes into that funny partition. Okay, well, let's hit finish install, and let's just see what happens here. System clock, yes, it's UTC. Okay, moment of truth. Will it boot? Okay, so we're disconnected from our SSH install session over here. And now remember, this on the right side of the screen is our actual system console. So, and let me put this on the left side of the screen so that you can see it without my face covering it. Right, so I should just be able to boot, and we called it disk 0. So there's grub. Let enter. So we are running the 6.16.8 kernel. And our login prompt. So this is interesting. Okay, so we are getting some messages that probably shouldn't be happening, but it did boot. So unable to handle kernel paging request at virtual address. Okay, so yeah, so I don't know what all that's about. But if I log in here, we're able to log in. We're on the SMP kernel, 6.16.8.1. Again, I anticipate... Right, so yeah, it doesn't know about the S7 processor, but that's just a minor name label thing. I mean, it worked. We literally just booted the latest snapshot ISO, installed it, and it worked. That was too easy. So the question is, what's causing problems on other machines? LDOM using the virtual disk and the virtual network. That's a huge difference, right? That's entirely different drivers to access the disks, the network. I'm using the latest snapshot ISO. It's possible, Tony, that you were still using an older snapshot, or possibly even a newer snapshot that wasn't in the... I went based on date. I didn't go somewhere else. I think I've like, there's sometimes, oh yeah, latest, but that should be, oh yeah, no, that's something else. That's going to be the 13. Yeah, so it could be a different snapshot as well, but that's good. That's promising. So if I do a... And we're on the network, I assume? Yeah, so I should be able to SSH into this guy. Let's see, 192.168.87 dot... I said, was it 13 or 14? Your LS CPU shows S7. Interesting. So you must be then using a different snapshot with probably an even newer Debian kernel package that had some of those additional patches applied. If it's showing S7 and not M7. Okay. So yeah, that explains that difference. So what was it 13 or 14? 14. Remember, I'm in a different environment here for this streaming window. Cool. Okay, yeah, they don't have these in snapshots. That's fine. You're on 670 yeah. So this is still the 6.16.8 kernel. So let's do build essential and get. What else do I want right off the bat? I definitely want ZSH. Let's just do that for now. Sure. Is there anything else here that looks interesting? Autoconf, yeah, we don't care about any of this quite yet. Okay. Wow. Oh yeah, a group in Europe is coming out with an Amiga. I saw the Amiga thing, yeah. And yes, Hambot approves as well. Here, let's have Hambot give us a ham fact while we wait. Here's your ham fact. Ham can be enjoyed hot or cold. Whether served warm with a side of mashed potatoes or sliced cold in a sandwich, ham is versatile and delicious in various preparations. That is true, Hambot. Thank you. Is there a... Oh, yeah, of course there will because it's Debian. I want to try... Hey, Ragtag, how's it going? We have successfully booted our Debian LDOM here on the SPARC S7 machine. I'm kind of wondering about the variable jumping around network speeds here. I want to do a quick... I want to do a test. I'll have to wait for this to finish. Yeah, I was going to do iPerf here. Just between this system and a system on my local network and just make sure that the virtual network switch is in fact working properly, because that could be another source of shenanigans between the VNet device driver in Linux and the virtual network switch capability and the firmware and just all those variables involved. In fact, do I have... Yeah, I do. I wonder if I have the firewall open between these networks. Yeah, so far so good in terms of Debian working. Okay, let's apt install iPerf 3. No, we don't want the daemon. Okay, so let me... Okay, so this is the console. So I can disconnect from the console. Ragtag asks, how likely was it this would work first try? Well, so based on problems that some other folks have been having, I was not expecting this latest snapshot install ISO to just work without having to go back and try a different kernel version or something like that. So based on other people's recent experience, I am surprised this just worked this easily. How do I get out of... Okay, so that's out of the console. That's out of the machine. So this is now back on my Casey Vo. Welcome in. Thanks for the follow. Okay, so this is back on my desktop machine. So if I do an iperf-s, I think it's probably iperf3. Yep, server listening. And then from the Debian LDOM, I can say iperf3. Do I do -client and then the server? Which is probably that? No. Helps if I remember my machine host name. Cool. Okay, yeah, so this is plugged into just a gigabit switch downstairs. And it looks like we can, in fact, sustain just about a gigabit. So yeah, so the virtual network seems to be working. So I think those weird network speed jumps are a problem on the Debian ports distribution site side, not my local network here. What's the iperf command to also check in reverse? Is there a... Is like, does it, if I do -r, does it do it the other way? No, what's the... capital R. I was close. Just make sure traffic in the other direction. Yeah, no problems there. Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy with that. For it's kind of a messy, hacked together network down in the garage, but based on the noise of this machine, I just stuck it in the out in the garage. Well, that's all very interesting. So what do we have here? Oh, that's interesting. It actually has two. Yeah, I'm still on S7 Debian. It has... it already has an updated kernel package, and there shouldn't be any new packages here. Okay, yeah, that's fine. So if we do a quick... I'll go back to my normal user here. And let's see. Twitch and something studio are fighting over my VRAM. The audio is great, but the video is affected. Oh, it's screwing up your video playback on your end. Well, I'll just put you to sleep with just hearing my talking. Okay, do we have... Yeah. LM Studio. Doing some music production type stuff. Audio engineering. I haven't put this in DNS yet. I should do that. Okay, and SSH copy ID. .87.14. Okay, so now if we connect, whoops, as the correct user. Excellent, we're in, and we have ZSH. Perfect. Surprising us to evaluate MechWarrior configurations using LLMs. Interesting. Cool. All right. Let's put this back. I mean, since we're here, let's go to kernel.org and let's get this 617 RC7. Hello, SS Shawshank. Shawshank. Hello, Shawshank. All right. Is there like a set of packages that help with? No, kbuild isn't kernel build. Aren't there some Linux kbuild infrastructure? I'm not sure if I'm not sure I need this for what I'm about to try to do. Yeah, thanks for the follow, Shawshank. Wing Zero, are you working on kernel development, man? Not directly yet. So this is a SPARC S7 server, and I'm mostly just interested in, does the kernel even work at all? So I just got a Debian ports, the latest snapshot installed on it, and it does seem to work. But I think what I'm going to try now is just building the latest release candidate for the next version of the Linux kernel and just see what happens. But if it gets to the point where I actually have to go in and start editing kernel code, that's probably not how far we're going to go. You need Adrian's patch. Okay. Let's... what was I doing? Where am I? Okay. Do I still have it on my clipboard? Yes. Most recent. Okay, so date index. There we go. Let's work backward from his messages to whichever one he most recently posted a patch on. Oracle kernel patches. Let's see. I know he's been publishing some built kernels. Oracle kernel pack. This was the thread where he was showing a couple of the ones from the Oracle side. Okay, where are we here? Let's tar xf that. Tony, if you happen to have a link to what I need, we can take a look at that. Perfect. This I probably need incursive stuff. I know there's a meta package for the tools I need to build a D package of the kernel. It's not the kbuild tool, but there were those. I don't think it's tied to a specific release, is it? Right, blah, blah, blah. Am I just imagining that? that's more than I want. Like Debian. There's Debian kernel handbook, but that's... There's like kernel dev. Yeah, that's too much crap. Oh well, let's just see where we fail. Yeah, Flex installed. There's a package that installs all this. Actually, what was that? Let me look at that kbuild thing again. Let me do them. Is there a meta package for that instead of the version apt install Linux kbuild? No. What is it called? I mean, I can just manually install all these packages, but Debian kernel build package? Build a Debian kernel package? No, I guess you just install the required packages on their own. Okay. We can do that. Oh, I'm not playing a specific. I'm doing build essential. Okay, Linux source. That's fine. And then this is, okay, let's go over here. Thanks for the follow, Wing Zero. Okay, make def config. Cool. Make mini config. I don't know how much stuff I'm going to want to trim out here, but we'll just take a quick look. Host name, POSIX, sure. I'm sure that's all fine. No, we want no forced preemption. I assume we want core scheduling for SMT. Although, is this one of those like weird super narrow use case? Oh yeah, maybe we don't actually need this. Okay. CPU, blah, 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 blah. Yes, we want config support. Yes, that's cool. Don't want the headers built in. C group support. There's got to be a better... What do I want to do here? Hold on a second. No. Does Debian have... Debian doesn't have proc config. Does Debian have... Zed it up. Hello. Welcome in. Thanks for the follow. We do have the config here. Let's make sure that's what we think it is. Yeah, this is an Oracle SPARC S7-2. Okay, let's start with the Debian config. There's probably stuff in here that the pristine kernel sources won't have in terms of certain patches, but that'll be fine. Let's copy that to .config. Then if we make menu config, I bet things like, yeah, C groups are enabled. Okay, this will probably be a better starting point than trying to go through all this myself. I don't remember if I need the leading dash there? I think I do. Okay. I do want kernel config support. The rest of that, I mean, sure, we'll take all of those. Okay. Processor. S&P, that's fine. That's fine. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, yeah, there's the real SMT support, not that other weird neighbor scheduling thing. Ah, check IRC for the patch. Okay, thank you. No specific processor optimization here, it looks like. Let me look at what Tony sent me. Okay, let me grab this over here. Okay, so this is the fixed accurate exception reporting in copy from to user for M7. Fixes M7 mem copy bug. Okay. I will need, okay, I'll get that over here in a second. Thank you, Tony. Let's see. Wing Zero says, I don't understand why such a world-class server would still have DES and 3DES hardware acceleration support when it was deprecated by AES in the early 2000s or so. Because it is still in use in the real world. I bet there's a ton of banking transactions to old IBM, to old COBOL code running on IBM mainframes that uses triple DES. For that matter, triple DES, I don't think there's a practical real world attack on triple DES yet. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, in any case, the reason is because people still use it. Anything interesting here? Yeah, sure. Miscellaneous stuff. Oracle Data Analytics Accelerator. I don't know, man. Architecture dependent. Sure. Yes, we want loadable modules. I don't want module signing. Module signature verification. Oh, I mean, if the kernel's just going to do it internally at build time, I'm not going to be building any. Yeah, I'm not going to do the ZFS module. That's probably okay. Have fun. I'm out. All right. Thanks for stopping by, Wing Zero. I'll see you next time. So why is this forced on? Selected by security lockdown LSM, security yes. Where's security lockdown LSM? No. Okay, well, I'll just leave it for now. Yes, block layer. Sure. All the usual partition types. PC BIOS, Sun, EFI. That's all we need. IO schedulers. Sure. Okay. Sure. Networking. This is where we just don't need a lot of stuff. I don't know what that is. I really don't need any wireless stuff. RF switch subsystem support? I don't think so. Plan 9. Do we want to hook up to any 9P servers? No, I don't think we need any 9P support. We're not going to use Ceph. Oh, I can't turn it off. Whatever. NFC? No, we don't have any NFC devices. Inter-FE based on IETF? No. Oh, well, it's forced on. Whatever. Network interface. Okay, well, that's exciting. Device drivers. I don't have a GPS receiver. I don't have a parallel port. I do have block devices. I actually don't have NVMe block devices in here. I mean, there's so much stuff here that we can probably turn off, but I'll probably turn off like one weird important thing that we actually need. We don't have real text stuff. Okay. All we need is the virtual disk driver. It's been a very long time since I compiled my own kernel. Back in my Slackware days. Ah, yes. We were just talking about Slackware earlier. Hey, Goldie, how's it going? Oh, geez. I mean, no, 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 no. We don't need any of this hardware. MPT Fusion. Is Slackware still being worked on? Yep. Slackware is still alive. Promise SuperTech. IBM. Oh, right. This is my SPARC machine, not my IBM machine. QLogic. Procade FBA. Okay. I'll leave VirtIO SCSI. That's not what we're using here. In fact, what are we using here? 7.14. Can you guys see this? Not quite. Hold on, let me turn off my camera for a second here. So, hey, we even have a Linux kernel module for the the hardware desk support there. That Wing Zero mentioned. Okay, what am I looking for here? Okay, Sun VNet. So obviously we need the virtual network, and then Sun VDC. I'm guessing that's the disk controller. I'm not sure where it will show up in the kernel config. Device handlers. I don't think I need any of those. So if I go /Sun VDC, do I find it? Yes. Okay, so it's just directly a block device driver. It's not even coming in through the SCSI layer. What do the drives show up as? Well, there's going to be a lot of slashes. Okay, VDisk A3. So yeah, the driver's bringing in its own device type. Okay, interesting. So that's there as a module. Okay, so that should be enabled. So yeah, I don't need any SCSI stuff. Is that what I'm seeing here? We'll just, in fact, the whole, RAID transport class. this kernel is so not going to work. Okay. SCSI transports. No, we don't need any of this. Turn it all off. At least if it'll let me. Okay. Oh, cool. I have to try it again. Yeah. Yeah, let us know how Slackware is going. So we don't have any SATA stuff. This is Linux's own. Well, no, device. I just want to turn this whole thing off. I don't think we need any of this for now. No. I have no idea what this is. No. Fusion MPT. I don't have any FireWire devices. Network device support is going to be important. But again, all we need is Sun VNet. Here, you can watch me again. So Sun VNet is under device drivers, network, Ethernet, Sun devices. Okay. Common routines to support Sun virtual networking. Interesting. Okay, I'll leave the various network stuff here. But where are network devices? Ethernet driver support. I don't know. I could have just probably built the kernel and it would probably just compile faster than it's taking me to go here and disable all this crap. But whatever. This is fun, right? One's in chat if you're having fun. D-Link, Emulex. Why can't I turn off Emulex? Hold on. Okay, thanks. One person's having fun. Easy chip, fungible devices. What were the fungible devices? Whatever. Google devices. Oh, that's probably like special if you're on Google Cloud. They have Huawei devices. Definitely get rid of those. Intel makes good network cards. Nope. Don't need any of this. Meta platforms, microchip devices. Microsemi, definitely nothing Microsoft. Micromi. National Instruments. Oh, how do I say your name? Bebe Tabagista. BB Tabagista? Bebe Tabagista? Thanks so much for the follow. Welcome in. Okay, the only thing what were the packet engine devices? Oh, no, that's an actual brand. Okay, QLogic, Qualcomm. The only thing I need here is some kind of Sun devices. SMC. Also on Ragtag is also having fun. Thanks, Ragtag. Tabagist. Hello, Tabagist. Okay, Sun devices. The Happy Meal. That's the good old Sun HMC. Big Mac. Quad Ethernet. Cassini. Yes. Sun Virtual Domain. Sun 4V. Virtual Switch support. Okay, we will keep those. 10 gig device. Synopsys. TI. Yep. Turn off all of this. Okay. I haven't seen this screen in ages. Yep. Actually, on other systems, for various other reasons, I do build kernels somewhat frequently, so I usually am not this aggressive about turning everything off. And that finally unlocked that to be turned off. Okay. We can turn that. No, still can't turn off that Emulex thing. Okay. Fiddy was a great technology in its day. Yes. It won't let us turn that off. PvP. Not that we're going to use it, but I'll leave PvP in there. USB network adapters. Nope. No wireless LAN. Okay, that's enough for now. The rest of that, input devices, whatever. I'm about ready to just be done here. Broadcom specific AIM software. What is all of this? No remote controller. Multimedia. I don't really have any multimedia devices. Sound card support. I don't have a sound card. There aren't even any USB. I don't think there's even any emulated USB devices on these. USB mass storage support. We're going to break something. We're definitely going to break something by turning all this off. InfiniBand. User space is fine. Sure. So we're not actually using the VirtIO drivers, but I always like my kernels to have the VirtIO drivers. I don't know what VDPA is. I don't know what vhost is. Virtual IO net or ViSock, whatever. I guess if we're keeping VirtIO, we'll keep that. No, we don't need Hyper-V staging drivers. Whatever. Okay, whatever. I'm done with this. File systems. Yeah, that's all good. Security. This might be... Where was that thing that was forcing signed modules on? I don't know. I don't care. Okay, we're done. Exit. Save. So, with that, we can do a... what's in this kernel? Yeah, nothing mixed with something. Oh, and the patch. Hold on. So does this kernel has arch spark lib m7mem copy.s? Ah, okay. So apparently there's a bug in this SPARC assembly implementation of memcopy. How can I get this? Let me download that here. SPARC S7 patch, and let me go to a machine. Oh, what machine? I'll just make a new. So if I go, where did I do that? Let's SCP. This was S7. What did it call it? SPARC S7. Okay. Send that over to, what machine is this? This is 192.168.87.14. Oh, have I been root this whole? Oh, I didn't want to do the kernel config as root. Now I'm not going to have write access. Okay, let me. Fix that. Okay. Now, yes, SPARC S7 patch. So this thing. Can I just apply this as is? Actually, what were the paths here? Yeah. Can't find file to patches input line 23. Oh, was there an extra? Is it? Why am I blanking out? Dash P1, right? Yeah. Okay. So there's that patch. And that's an F-18 flying by my house. So how many cores did we give this thing? It should have 48 virtual cores. So let's do a. Do I have time installed? No. Okay. User bin time. Nice make dash J. Amazon delivery taking safe package delivery to a new level with F-18s. What did I say? 48? And we're going to make deb package. Okay, what am I missing here? Not a Git repository. I don't care that it's not a Git repository. Creating source package requires Git repository. What? I mean, I can make this a Git repository. What am I doing wrong here? I've never had to. Is it because it's a release candidate? Something changed with the way deb package works? I don't. I've never had make deb package care about Git before. What am I missing here? Let's ask the interwebs. Make deb package require Git. Does it require you to have made a clone from Git? I mean, that's what it sounds like it's saying, but doing this on my other Debian machines, I've just downloaded the kernel source tarball and make deb package from the kernel's makefile works. Yes, using make deb package for building Debian. Oh, this is AI bullshit. I want someone to actually tell me. This is for using the deb builder. I wonder if something's... So normally I'm building like 6.8 kernels this way with this make deb package thing. I wonder if this is some newer... Is there just documentation for that kernel? I want the kernel documentation. Oh, this is annoying. I've never run into this before. I guess we can... Let's just get... I guess we just get... Can we get... what is the mainline repo? Remove the check from the make file. Yeah, no, I assume it's... So what corresponds to that front page package? Is it Linus's repo? Or no, who's Linux? Okay. Is this the right one? 617 RC7. Yes. I think this is the right one to get. Hope the build goes well. If your kernel build doesn't work, you can download a tar. Oh, if your kernel, you've got it in there. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Well, let's, I guess, get from move Linux to linux.foo. Let's see. I want a can I say depth equals 1 here? I don't want the entire history of the entire kernel development. Okay, yeah, this isn't too bad. I'm still curious. Let's get out of that. What's it? Actually, just make help. Yeah, deb package. Build both source and binary deb. Oh, can I just do build only the binary? If I just, because it says it's needed for source packages. I wonder if I can just do a bin deb. That might work. Yeah, ZB free. That's what I'm seeing too. Okay, so... Oh, I didn't need to rename it because it actually just... it came into Linux. Okay, let's try make bin deb package. Deb helper, okay. Move myself up top. There we go. Deb helper. There we go. That might have been one of the packages I was trying to remember earlier. Cool. Okay, try it again. Unmet build dependencies, libdw dev. Okay. Libdw dev. What even is that? Well, some kind of another compression algorithm. Probably one of those RAM init FS. That's not telling me what it is. 1T64. So what is libdw1T64? Oh, access to dwarf debug information. Gotcha. Gotcha. There we go. Okay. Nice move trick. Yeah, the curly braces in shell expansions are quite useful. In that case, I could have just copy and pasted quickly, just as quickly, but you can have, yeah, it's nice if you're trying to rename things like with a certain suffix or a certain portion to another certain portion. You can just do it all in one expression. All right, go computer, go. Look at it go. So I'm curious. Let's go back to the S7 itself. Yep, so it knows that this guy is using 100% CPU utilization. But of course, on the actual Solaris install, which is its own logical domain, as far as it's concerned, it's idle because even the primary domain is just another logical domain running under the hardware hypervisor. And at this point, it only has its own two CPUs, which are mostly idle. You can see it is using a little bit of CPU here. In fact, over time, with all the work we've been doing, this is because the actual hard disk, the backing store, is served up from the virtual disk server on our primary domain. Do I have my... Yeah, okay. So this is in, yeah, this is in 87. Today's the 27th. Let me put this guy at 14. Did you build with all threads active? Yeah, I did a -J 48. 48, yeah, which I think is the right number. Should be 6 by 8. Yeah, that math works. 48. So this guy is S7 Debian. And this guy is S7 Debian. Here's the 27th. Okay, we can actually have some sanity here. Yes, although the username is going to be wrong. Cool. All right. Go, go, go. $48. Only 40 more than mine. Ragtag asks, while we wait on the build, can I present a real-world hypothetical unrelated to this? Yes. Go for it. I am feeling like I almost certainly broke something Debian's going to expect because I just disabled so much stuff in that kernel build. But at the same time, I mean, it was mostly just like devices I don't have. So we'll see. Are you even building a kernel if you ain't breaking something? Okay, let's see what Ragtag asks. You get a salad to go. When you get home, you realize they forgot the dressing. You have some ketchup packets, a mini fridge, and a small amount of other food. What do you do? Well, what's the other food? I almost always just make my own salad dressing because I always have some nice extra virgin olive oil and um, like some nice vinegar and some herbs, and I just mix them together. Home equals a hotel. I mean, so right, if I can pop down to the hotel restaurant or bar and see if they happen to have some salad dressing, they would, you know, most hotels I've stayed at would give me a little cup of salad dressing for free. And then I'd come back up to my room and and do it. But if not, right, if it's not that convenient to just pop down and get some dressing, I'd eat the salad without dressing. That's fine. It was just mixed green salad. Yeah. Oh, avocado, even better. If you can slice up some avocado over it, that'll give it a little bit of moisture as well. But even right, if it's a tossed green salad with like tomatoes in it, right, those are moist. But yeah, no, eating a green salad without dressing isn't the end of the world. I'd still eat it. Would you? Is there something really awful about just eating lettuce without dressing? Oh, IPv6. I forgot to turn IPv6 off. I always turn off IPv6 in my own kernel configurations. I suspect this won't take too long. It's moving at a good clip here. On Debian systems, I like to do the make deb package because then I just have packages I can install and uninstall, and they come with all the modules, and it gets rid of the modules if you uninstall it, and it auto triggers like the kernel package install hooks, so it updates grub, and it's just a nice clean way to do it on Debian, even if you're just using the pristine upstream sources. I ate the other food and I'm keeping the salad for tomorrow, but I like the avocados dressing decision. So this wasn't so much a hypothetical. This is the situation that you might be in right now. Oh, you said a real world hypothetical. So it's both real world and hypothetical. It's currently existing in a superposition between being real and being hypothetical. Set it up. Last year, I found out they're still teaching the same stuff about IPv6 in schools they did 20 years ago. We're running out of IPv4 addresses. Usage switched to IPv6. Still using IPv4 today. Uh, yeah, I mean, we are running out of IPv4 addresses. IPv4 addresses are very expensive, right? You basically have to buy your block of addresses at auction, and then um, ICANN or whoever manages them charges a lot more now for you to keep them than they charge for you to keep IPv6 addresses. And IPv6 is pretty much what's being used broadly by cell carriers, right? All the mobile internet, all of that. Because I mean, that's another case, right? There just aren't enough IPv4 addresses for everybody's cell phone. So even if you're not really using IPv6 for anything else, it's almost certainly being used in your mobile network. And otherwise, though, everything about IPv6 is so annoying. So yeah, internal home network, yeah, of course IPv4 is fine. But of course, the problem is if you are actually going to put anything on the internet for people to access, there's still enough residential, right? And then even people in offices, commercial users who are still only on IPv4. So you still need IPv4 to host things on the internet. And right, we're just in the cycle where it seems like we're kind of at a pause point of IPv6 deployment because everybody who was going to roll it out voluntarily already has done so. Internally, the backbones of all of the ISPs and networks and all of that, they all carry IPv6, no problem, right? It's fully deployed in that regard. But internal, users, end users that don't have IPv6 today, who knows when they're going to get IPv6? And service providers don't want to miss out on that audience. So, if all of a sudden there were important websites that I couldn't get to because my residential ISP doesn't provide IPv6, then I might start making noise. And I'd tell my ISP, hey, I'm switching ISPs. I'm going over to Comcast if you guys don't get IPv6 sorted. But the fact of the matter is, there isn't a site that almost anyone would want to get to that isn't also still, either IPv4 only or dual homed IPv6, IPv4. So you don't have the people who don't yet have IPv6 end user access complaining to the ISPs that aren't giving them IPv6. And then since they're not complaining, they're not getting it. And since they're not getting it, they're an audience who can't get to service providers or, websites, companies, online shopping, whatever, that only has IPv6. And therefore, they're not making their sites right. So it's just this the feedback loop of right until something breaks that feedback loop of everything's fine. I right seems like IPv6 adoption is probably pretty stalled, even though it is pretty widely adopted at this point. That said, it's super annoying, and yeah, if it can be avoided, I just stick with IPv4 for everything. All right. Oh, AMD GPU. Oh, I missed GPU drivers. I could have turned off all the GPU stuff. Set it up says I kind of dislike the IPv6 addresses though. Too long to remember. Have to run it local. Still on a local DNS server. I mean, yeah, you can't remember IPv6 addresses. And if you're trying to remember IPv6 addresses, right? If you're trying to make address prefixes and stuff that have some kind of meaning or somewhat memorable, you're basically doing it wrong. So yeah, it's heavily dependent on DNS entries or other MDNS local zero conf type discovery. That said, I run a bind server in my internal home and lab networks because even with IPv4 addresses, I just want to use host names. I briefly popped open my DNS config a minute ago, and I probably have 100 IP addresses between my home and lab network. So I don't remember all those IPv4 addresses either. What I do remember, though, are the couple of /24 prefixes that I use for my various VLANs. And that, even that just goes out the door with IPv6. So, yeah, you just, with IPv6, you're going to be copying and pasting a lot. Whereas today, I just type in the IP server of my DNS server. It's like, I'm never going to have an IPv6 address for a DNS server that I'm going to remember, right? Most likely. So, yeah, they're annoying, but what can you do? I mean, you can do what I do, and you just don't use IPv6 at all. So, there you go. Build, little kernel, build. Oh, yeah. See, look at how much time we're spending the GPU stuff. I should have kept going with my slashing drivers, and if I had seen the GPU category, I just would have turned that whole thing off. Nouveau. It'll be interesting to see the future of Nouveau with NVIDIA. I don't know if they're seriously behind it, but NVIDIA theoretically moving more toward open sourcing their actual driver. If it'll be a situation of Nouveau pulling code from NVIDIA open source releases, or if the NVIDIA open source releases will actually be genuinely legit enough and good enough that there just won't be a need for Nouveau, or if Nouveau will continue supporting, maybe it's a situation of older hardware that the current version of the NVIDIA drivers that they might be releasing source for don't work, and so it'll be a more of a divide based on older chipsets versus newer. Fun fact, guess what? Amazon-owned streaming platform doesn't support IPv6. Yeah, no, Git is only on the IPv4 internet, right? It's like you don't get anything extra by hosting your public-facing stuff on IPv6. So why would you put in the extra effort? Because you have to host it on IPv4 anyway to reach your audience. By the way, would it be unsafe to have aliases for machines like server 1 and have it aliased to SSH into that machine? I mean, not really. If you just wanted like alias S7-Deb is SSH and Wilson at S7 Debian. No, there's nothing wrong with that. Oh, except you have to know what you're doing in the shell, unlike me. There we go. Yeah, no. If it's a machine you connect to a lot, that's fine. What I typically do, because there's a lot of machines I connect to that require a lot of different SSH settings, and I don't necessarily want to pollute my shell command namespace, is I would typically do something like in my SSH config file, I would say S7-Deb, and here's where I have username and Wilson, hostname s7debian.lab.mattwilson.org. Here's where you can set a specific identity file if you need to use a specific key for that. And so instead of having to type out SSH, my username, because I'm logged in as a user called stream in this shell session. Instead of having to type out SSH and Wilson at, and then especially if it was a full host name, if it wasn't in my DNS search suffix, by putting a host name alias in the SSH config file, my client config file, my personal user config file. Of course, I tried to do it off the top of my head and messed it up. What was it complaining about? Yeah, I'm usually in a config file that has 100 other of those entries, and so I'm just copying instead of having to remember. So off the top of my head, oh, right, okay. It's host, and then it is, I think, just username works, and then I was right about the parameters. I just missed the host part. Except I'm still not right about the parameters. Okay, 50th time's the charm. Yes, okay, and then because it's a different name, it's prompting me for the host key again. Yeah, so now I still use the SSH command, but I just have config file entries set up that are essentially aliases with all of the right settings for that host. And so I SSH to S7-Deb, and I get there. Okay, cool. Looks like the compile finished, and we're just now packaging up the D package. Additional S7 related patches. Okay, well, we'll try and boot this thing and just see what happens. Since it's all built already. And then we can add the other. Okay. So that, now I up a level. So here we go. So I got my Debian packages here. So I should just be able to dpackage-I, and then I want the Linux image. Do I even care about... It may require libc dev. And, oh, because I didn't... Oh, and I got headers. I don't even really need the headers. Let's just see if it accepts that kernel. What? Oh, let's do su dash. Okay. Linux image, not the debug one. Okay, yeah, there's no dependency problem there. Yeah, so it'll go ahead and build my initrd for me. It should have added it to grub. Yep, now it should also have the other kernel available so we can actually boot back into... whatever, I assume it did the right thing. So this is an SSH session, so let's go back to the console, which is localhost 5000. And we'll just reboot and, I don't know, see how badly broken we are. Or it might work. Boot disk 0. Well, okay. So that's definitely a not work. Premature end of file and boot. So it doesn't like that at all. But that's not particularly the error I would expect for... Yeah, I mean, that file should be there. Premature end of file. It's compressed, which should be fine. Okay, then. Well, let's go back to this kernel. Yeah, I loaded that one just fine. So that's a little weird. Use that new SSH hostname alias. Okay. Wait. Oh. Okay, there's the initrd. There's the VM... I mean... So the Debian ones are not compressed. Mine is. Interesting. gzip. Oh. Okay, I mean, it's still smaller, but I did turn a lot of stuff off, and the Debian kernel will have a lot of it enabled. It'd be mostly modules, but there was definitely stuff in there that wasn't modules. So what if I try the already uncompressed? Okay, I know we shouldn't edit this file directly, but let's change this to an X. initRD. Let's try this. Interesting. So it didn't like the compressed kernel. Otherwise, it does at least boot. Yep, that's my kernel. Still doesn't know what an S7 is. I did see a patch online that adds the S7 name and the right CPU code. But there we go. So that's interesting. Not sure why the compressed kernel doesn't work, but the uncompressed kernel does work. Check IRC. The extra, you did send me that extra patch. Oh, is that what that patch is? CPU info patch, dmessage patch, journal patch, LSPCI patch. A couple of patches there. Cool. Okay. So yeah, that'll clean up some of the labels. Curious about the compressed versus uncompressed kernel. Tony, do you know off the top of your head if you were using a compressed or uncompressed kernel with your 6.17 RC4 build? 1 a.m. All right. Yeah. Good night. Is that it up? Thanks for hanging out. Uh, 6.17.0-RC7 kernel with one patch. You're using uncompressed. Okay, yeah, it's interesting that the Debian shipped kernels are also uncompressed. So that may just be a known problem or known limitation with the SPARC loader. Cool. Well. Overall, I would say this is going better than expected. We have both the Debian provided kernel and then also the latest kernel release candidate that at a trivial level seem to work. I'm curious if I just try and boot the latest Gentoo ISO, what happens? I have the note here from Tony that said on the Gentoo side they were saying it doesn't work, and I might need to go back to one from April, I think you said. Yeah, the one from April. So I'm going to leave the Debian system here. Again, at the beginning of this, I said the goal here, or at least what we're really hoping for, would be a Debian install with either an old or a new kernel, just some working Debian install, so that as we have these new patches and new test kernel builds from Debian, we actually have an environment that we can try them out in. And if they don't work, we have a kernel that we can boot back into. So, I mean, yeah, I can try some of his tools. Let me get out of that. And I mean, if I just want to do a quick, like, floating point sort of stress test, I can do. I have my own little Mandelbrot thing here that I use that actually does good multi-threading. I'll just grab that one for now. Do I even have that should be fine. Do I have the X dev libraries we need installed? Nope. Okay, and what was I using earlier for Marsbot? We go dash I65356 dash Z. Oh, that's gonna be 4398046511104 X minus 1.999999175874 and we'll give it the full 48 threads. So this should run without crashing, without any problems. Yep, no problem. 6.2 seconds. I mean, yeah. We were able to get through a full, the full kernel compile with all the threads. So that stressed the system for a while. That was good. Of course, we haven't now tried that on this current release of the kernel. But like I said, we have a good test bed now where we can test. We can see what works, what doesn't work. So that is nice. So with that, I would also like to see what's going on with Gentoo here. And so we're expecting, let's see, where's all the advanced choices for crazy people? Yeah, so they rebuild this every couple days. So if we have to go back to April, this might have a kernel that doesn't work. But let's just, trust but verify. Let's just see what happens. Or if they've already fixed it in the last couple days. Let's grab that link should work. So I should be able to go to, what system am I on? Okay, so let's put Debian to the side for a second. And let's set up an LDOM for Gentoo. so let's create our area for it. So create dpool LDOMs. This, again, my very creative naming scheme is going to be S7 Gentoo. And did I do a 64? I did 128 gig volume. So we'll do that. I could thin provision these, but that's fine. I don't think I'm really going to need hundreds of gigs of space on the Solaris side for anything either. LDOMs, what am I doing? S7 Gentoo disk 0. Get our ISO. Oh, this will take a couple of minutes as well. Okay, well that's going. I will be right back. All right, I've returned. With 15 seconds to go. When my air conditioner just kicked in a little harder. Oh, it's 80 degrees outside. Now, the weather hasn't quite gotten the memo that it's fall, but the weather is going to get nice very soon. Oh, there was another. I think the McMinnville air show is this weekend, and I think some of the military jets are actually operating out of the Hillsborough airport. So that's why they're flying over my house to get to the airport. Yeah, so we were 81 today, but tomorrow will still be warm, and then we get nice, glorious, beautiful weather. Hey, name Sam. I was living in a war zone. No, that's the new military. I mean, honestly, I would have, I would have taken whatever assistance anyone's willing to give to go in and clean up Portland for quite a while now. But it's still nice out here in the suburbs. Okay, where are we? We got the ISO. Perfect. So what am I doing? Do I need to create? Yeah, so let's LDM, and we will create our add domain. Yep, S7 Gentoo. Excellent. We said 6 cores. That's going to be 7 Gentoo. Set memory, 128 gigs. And then I'm just referring to my old notes here. Add VNet. VNet 1. This is the name in the domain, so I can reuse the same name that I used in S7 Debian. And we're saying attach that to our vSwitch 0. And we're doing this all in S7 Gentoo. Add VDS dev. Our zvol disk dpool S7 Gentoo. LDOMs. Yeah, S7 Gentoo disk 0. And this needs to go to, what am I calling this? I'm calling this S7 Gentoo dash disk 0 using my same naming scheme as before at primary VDS 0. Okay, so far so good. Same thing to add the ISO. What's the plan for Gentoo? Are you installing only one S7 related patch or all the other patches? On Gentoo, I don't know if I'm even going to get to the kernel. Oh well, I guess I'll have to build a kernel at some point on Gentoo. I don't know. I'm just curious to see if the Gentoo installer boots and start getting the system set up, and we'll go from there. Because if the install ISO boots, then the Gentoo distribution kernel package should work. I actually don't know if they're in sync or not. But yeah, eventually I want to get all these patches in and run both of these systems on the 6.17 release candidate with the patches that we think need to be upstreamed. So add VD, where was I? So I want the path to my ISO, which is dpool LDOMs S7 Gentoo. Yeah, that one. And so this is going to be S7 Gentoo ISO at primary VDS 0. Good. And then we'll add those disks to our domain. CD-ROM. That's going to be that guy. S7 Gentoo. Good. Again, this time I will spell it correctly. Auto -boot equals false on S7 Gentoo. That's fine. Oh, right. In fact, thank you for the reminder. Before I forget, I do want to actually save these domains now. So if you do, like if you do LDM, is it show sp config? List sp config? Yeah, so these are the domain configurations that are saved in the service processor. So you can see the service processor still only has the factory default domain config, and that's what it will boot on the next power on. So if you just do a reboot from Solaris, from my control domain here, you'll still have all the same domains, But if I actually power the machine off and turn it back on, the domains I created will be lost because the service processor, when it powers the machine back up, is going to go back to the factory default. So all we need to do here is say LDM add SP config, and I'm going to call this my S7 domains. And now it's building all that up. It's communicating with the service processor. And if we list them, you'll now see S7 domains as current. So current means that it's both the current and also will be the boot or the next power on, right? We don't see next power on, next to factory default anymore. It'll be able to remain on S7 domains. Now, if I make changes to the domain configs again, I need to resave them to the service processor to survive a power cycle. The other funny thing about this, again, I'll do LDM show or LDM list. If I were to shut down Solaris right now, the service processor would actually immediately start this domain back up because it has other domains that are dependent on it. I think that's the reason. It's kind of hand wavy, but even if I shut down Debian, with the domain still bound to the hardware, it won't let me keep the primary domain off. So when I actually want to power down this machine, I'll do a clean, OS level shutdown of all of the domains, of the other domains. And then from the primary domain, I will unbind them. So the config will still be here, but you're removing the config from the hardware. And only then will the system be happy letting me shut down from Solaris here and then have it actually remove the power from the machine. Not just immediately start this domain back up. If that's kind of the conclusion I came to based on when I was playing with all the LDOMs on my T4 in any case. So I think I attached everything, right? Yeah, I attached both the disks. I attached all of that. We should be good to go. So we LDM bind S7-Gentoo. Can you please provide your Debian kernel config file with me? Yes. Let me grab that before I somehow accidentally blow away this whole box or something for some reason. S7 Debian, and that was well, yeah. Actually, let's use that alias since that's the right username. That was source Linux that 6.17.config. So this is going to be that .config. I mean, as you saw, this isn't a great config because, while I aggressively trimmed a lot of stuff, I still didn't trim enough, like the GPUs and everything. But yeah, if you want it as a starting point, no problem at all. And while I'm here, let me just do this. Let me do this the easy way. I can, yeah, I can just curl post it to the paste bin here. Okay, whoops. So buzz K2RV6. Does that work? Maybe. What browser is that opening? No, that doesn't work. What did I type wrong? Oh, I put an H on the end of. I can't copy and paste between this screen and my actual computer. So hold on, you probably already got it. Take the H out of that link and that should, yeah, and I guess plain is easier. Okay, here we go. So that's bound. So now So the console port for this domain is 5001. And I should be able to LDM start S7 Gentoo. Okay, boot CD-ROM. Well then. Yeah. That clearly doesn't work. Did I attach the ISO correctly? I think so. I have, yeah, LDM add VDSD the ISO and LDM add VDisk CD-ROM. Yeah, it has the 2 disks there, and CD-ROM should be probably, yeah, CD-ROM is there. Okay, yeah, so like this isn't even a Linux kernel problem. This is just maybe this ISO is something in their build infrastructure changed to break SPARC booting. So does Gentoo host older images? It looks like they may. So Tony, you said April. So I will try the April CD. So install Spark 64 minimal April 14th. Okay, so we'll turn off that domain. Now I need to remember. So I want to remove. Let's see. We used add. Destroy list. Remove dash resource. Let's see how this works. So LDM remove, and it should just be the opposite. Yeah, remove vdisk CD-ROM, and it needs the domain name S7 Gentoo. Okay. So the old ISO is also still in our virtual disk server, but is there like a Dell VDS dev? Add VDS dev. Set VDS dev. Remove VDS dev, and you just give it the volume name and the service. Okay, we can do that. So LDM remove VDS dev, and we had called it S7 Gentoo ISO at primary. That. Okay, very good. And then we just do the same thing again in reverse with the older disk. So let's do LDM add VDS dev, virtual disk server device. And that's going to be our data pool, LDOMs, S7 Gentoo, and the ISO from April. I'm going to be able to call this the same thing here. And then we add vdisk. I can just use the same command here. Okay, LDM start S7 Gentoo. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so Tony, you were absolutely correct. The note you saw about Gentoo. And again, I don't think that's even a kernel problem. That's just something in even just their bootloader build on their install ISO appears to be busted in the current builds. But with that, let's see if their kernel works. Yeah, that should be good. I wonder what they're using here. 6.12.21. Okay. Woo. Oh, it defaulted the key map because it didn't like sitting there waiting for me. Okay, so now it's just copying the thing to memory. Very, very interesting. So yeah, I wonder what's wrong with the latest ISOs. Okay, let me set a root password here. And then, did I get a DHCP address or something at this point? Yeah, I'm... what do I want to do here? I'll just use that address. Okay, so let's get out of this. Let's get out of this. I should be able to SSH as root to this address. Oh, nope. I have to start the SSH server. Let's pull up the Gentoo handbook. It's under get started. Yes. SPARC. Okay. Let me rearrange these windows here. So this is the console. I don't really need this right now, but let me just leave that over here. And then let's move this guy over here, and now we can read this together. Okay, configuring the network. How do I start SSH? Really? There's no SSH on this page? Did it actually tell me on the console? Am I just blind? Yes. Type. Okay. Yeah, I remember that. Type that. What? Okay. Let's see what I mean. Yeah, this console can get a little wonky, which is why I want to SSH into it. Perfect. Okay. So we're in the Gentoo Live CD. Oh, do I really want to do a Gentoo install right now? I guess we may as well start. We'll get it going. I don't think there's anything else we need to do on preparing the network. No. So let's prepare the disks. Do I have LSBLK on here? I do. So yeah, we just have the big vdisk A. We need the special little SPARC boot partition, which isn't actually a file system. It's just somewhere that the grub bootloader can be written to. So we'll do that. I'm not going to do 2x swap. And then the rest of the disk. Okay. Trying to remember if there were any other notes here I've seen in the past about anything we need to worry about. I don't think so. So let's do fdisk dev vdisk a. We don't want a sun disk label. We're going to make a GPT disk label. There we go. Okay. Let's see. I tend to keep the instructions at the top of the window, so I'll move, we'll float back down there. And we'll create this little BIOS boot partition. 2048, it only needs to be 2 megs. And then the type of that is 4. Okay, sounds good. I want, what did I do on Debian? a 16 gig swap. And Linux swap is 19. Yes, it is. And then the rest of the disk will be our root partition. Okay, that looks good. Now, interestingly, none of that matters. Yeah, we write that. Gentoo actually recommends XFS as the recommended all-purpose, all-platform file system. So we may as well have some fun and use XFS. So I don't know that I have... Oh, it is already installed. Okay, so you don't need to install it separately. So we can just do /dev vdisk a3. Yep, that's our Linux file system. And we have an XFS file system. And then we'll need to do a make swap on this guy. Perfect. Not that we'll need it, but we'll do swap on. Okay. Now, they're going to want me to mount, right, their swap. They want it mounted at mount Gentoo. So that's dev vdisk a3 on mount Gentoo. Magister X, welcome in. Thank you for the follow. This kernel does not have the XFS module. Well, okay then. You guys are seeing this too, right? They told me XFS is the recommended all-around. We're not going to get the kernel module from XFS progs. Oh, I don't even have emerge in this environment. Whatever. I don't know very much about Gentoo. Okay, well, I guess we will make an ext4 file system. And that works. Okay. That is slightly funny. Oh well, I guess no XFS for us. Okay, stage file, which I'm going to need to download. That date is correct. Okay, so what are our choices here? We'll grab the 64-bit OpenRC stage 3. Gentoo install docs are so nostalgic and comforting, aren't they? Okay, yeah, our date's already good. Perfect. We have wget installed. Looks like we do. Yeah, sure. I mean, if we cared, we could check the hash. All right, and then we just extract the sucker. Oh, why did they put a V in there? That's fine. Okay. We have our stage 3 root file system. Configuring compiler options. Okay, good. They do include VI now. Oh, I think in the change root, it doesn't have VI yet, but we'll deal with that. Mount Gentoo Etsy portage. I have no idea. MCPU. Let's tune for Niagara 7 because we can. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, I'm happy with the rest of that. Rust flags. We're living in a rusty world, my friends. A rusty, rusty world. Make opts. Are we still in make.conf? Okay, yeah. Let's do make ops equals -j. What do I have on here? 48. Let's do 36 for our regular builds. What's this -l? Is this a RAM thing? There's -j. What does the -l option do? Whatever. I'm not going to use it. Okay, is that all correct? SPARC 64, that's fine. Right, make ops. Okay. Rooting. Copy our resolve conf, and let's actually look at that. I'm fine with that for now. And do all of the loopback mounts or bind mounts. Yeah, that was right. Okay. Okay. Change root into that. Get that profile. And I guess remind ourselves that we're in the change root. Perfect. We do not have a boot partition. Okay, so this part, I think I've done twice as much as I need to in the past. It's telling us we can emerge web rsync for behind restrictive firewalls. Okay, so that's going to rsync the ebuild repository. We have the mirror thing. Then it also says optionally, we can do the emerge sync. This command will use the rsync protocol to update. Oh, which was fetched earlier on through emerge web rsync. So I'm not behind a restrictive firewall. Oh, but I guess it uses this bandwidth too. Okay, I guess, so my question is, can I just directly do emerge sync, or should I first do, I'll just do it how they tell us to here. Emerge web rsync. Okay, and if memory serves, this will still take a couple of minutes. Yeah, so this is a September 26th snapshot, so it is pretty up to date. All right, news. It's going to keep bugging me about that until I read the news. So let's read the news. Oh, thanks. That was very helpful. Yeah, I'm glad I caught all of that. Okay. Presumably the news is more important if you already have stuff installed and these are potential breakages before you upgrade packages. So we'll ignore all that. Mirrors. I guess. Mars, what was that source hut site you flipped to a bit ago? You mean what was the specific site, or what is source hut in general? Source hut is a what do the kids call them now? Code forages. But my specific I have some stuff up on source hut. Stuff I actually expect people to find, and like some libraries that I write that some other people use. That's all up in GitHub just because people know about GitHub. But just for some more of my just personal stuff that I want to make public but isn't really meant for other people, I put up on source hut here. So like my DWM, my window manager I use on my desktop, is up here. I no longer use NixOS on my desktop, but until relatively recently I did. So if you're interested in how NixOS works, my desktop config was there. Yeah, this actually, so the source code for Hambot right there. Thank you, Hambot. Is up there. And then my own little stupid Mandelbrot program, because there aren't enough in the world already, is up there. Okay, what was I doing here? Mirrors? Yeah, why not? Where'd my Gentoo instructions go? Here we go. Yeah, yet another Mandelbrot. Why can't I say that? Mandelbrot program. What? Okay. Of course, it's Gentoo. We have to build the mirror program. Hey, at least it's accepting that dash MARC Niagara 7. Good. 3 of 3. So let's try this mirror select program and see what it does for us. Right, this is what I remember. It gives me a huge list of mirrors. So it's not like it auto tries a speed test or something. But let's see. What do we have in the United States? OSU Open Source Lab. Perfect. I would recommend seeing jobs in emerge default ops to install packages in parallel. Alrighty. But if I already have my -J set to almost all of my threads, will it then try and do multiple packages in parallel, all using -J 36? Or I might even go back. Well, J is a flag to make. So what I'm asking is if emerge is also configured to install packages in parallel, will it run make -J 36 on multiple packages in parallel? In which case I'm trying to use far more threads for make. Gotcha. Yeah. And yeah, no, a lot of packages can't. The make files don't necessarily parallelize out that wide. So yeah, I can see how kind of finding the balance between those would be good. Okay, why are they even giving me HTTPS and HTTP options? So let's do that. And then I guess we should maybe have a fallback. I don't know. MIT? Sure. Probably good to have too. So what did that put in my file? etc portage make.conf. Oh, right. This is where I don't have VI. And they don't have a VI package. They have Yeah, it'll have to be a Vim package. Do they have a Vim minimal package? I don't want to install everything quite yet. Do they have an NVI package? No, they don't have NVI. Oh, and it's Gentoo. They probably won't have like a minimal Vim package because the right way to do it is to set up my use flags and right if I don't want GTK or actually thankfully they do actually have a Vim core package. Let's try that. Vim core. Okay. This is fine. I just wanted something that wasn't gonna, build the entire X11 stack to pull in like Vim GTK or something like that. But presumably Vim core here should not try to build the whole world. I just use nano. Don't ban me. I was just about to say because I cannot make myself use nano to edit config files. It is just not the mode in which my brain operates when I'm editing files from a terminal window. Okay, what are we doing? Oh, I was just, this is just because I wanted to see what it put in my make.conf here. Okay, there we go. That didn't take too long. Are you kidding me? How does this work in Bash? We have Vim Tutor. I may actually need this. Yeah, I don't know what this Vim core thing is then. Ugh. Levy works. Okay, I'm gonna. You win, Moldy Bruh. You win. Okay, I want these in the other order. I don't want, I want to use this one first, please. How does, okay. Okay. Did I exit out of, no, I didn't. I did exit, okay. Darn it. It's my mistake. What did they have me do in this profile? And this prompt, okay. Emerge default ops in the make file, okay. Where were we? We will, of course we want the latest and greatest. Why wouldn't we? I already read the news. It was all very helpful. Choosing the right profile. Okay, you select profile list. Say we should be on the correct profile. Is that true? Yeah. The default profile on this live CD is almost certainly the 64-bit user space OpenRC profile. How's our Debian system doing? Has it spontaneously crashed yet, or is it somewhat stable? No, it's still there. Yep. Hasn't crashed yet. So far, so good, at least sitting idle. That's encouraging. Okay, that's done. Let's see what profile we have selected. Okay, so we have Debian Linux SPARC 64UL. You know, Moldy, you look surprisingly like Jesu. All right, that's funny. That's one of Pika's emotes, not actually one of Jess's emotes. Yeah. Okay, yeah, this is correct. We're not going to switch to split user. I'm fine with this profile. Something tells me I'm not going to bother with a binary package host. Okay, and this is where we can spend days reading through all the available use variables and then picking out the ones we want. Let's see what it gives us out of the box. Okay. There's that IPv6, whatever. I'll let IPv6 live on this system. Incurses. Okay, Apache 2 modules I don't care about. Those go all the way to here. Okay, collect. Okay, oh, so the rest of these are just sub options. Okay, so these are basically the main use variables we have. Do we think there's anything extra I would want? I've read through the whole thing before, and sometimes there's things I want to add and remove, but I am tempted to just leave it alone. No, that's not true. I know there's at least one I'm going to want. Let's look at this really quickly. What's everyone's favorite use variable? Yeah, I know I want ZSH completion if that's not in there. And Z standard if that's not in there. And then I think I'll just be happy with that. I don't remember seeing Z standard here. No. Okay. So those are back in nano, etc. portage make dot conf. So I say use equals that and zstd. I'm so tempted to do minus IPv6. But Dennis hates it when I do no IPv6 support on my systems that he's testing things on, like DAX, because the OpenSSL test suite tests TLS over IPv6, and so there's always some failures there. But that's okay. He has his own S7 system, so he doesn't need my S7 system to test stuff on S7-4. So I'm going to do minus IPv6, just because why not? Okay, perfect. Anything else? At some point, we need to set some license flag thing. The CPU flags, there aren't going to be any extra CPU flags on this box. I don't need video cards. Yes, accept license. Is that in this make.conf? What's it defaulting to? At free. That's fine. That has free software, free documents. That's probably fine. I don't think we're going to need anything that doesn't fall under free. If we do, it'll complain about it, so that'll be fine. Okay, package license. I don't need rar. Okay. Yeah, updating the at world set. It's optional. See, this is going to rebuild everything that my changed use flags affect. So let me pull up the document that Moldy Bruh linked to. Okay. Oh, because yeah, it is 2 slashes because the slash is actually in the article name. So emerge default opts can be applied through the jobs. Is used by parts of reference system load. Run up to 3 simultaneously. So we could do something like so you're recommending, so what did I say I have on here? 48. So we could do J12 and then say something like emerge default opts equals jobs 4. Give that a try. The logic makes sense. Let's see where to make. Okay. Yeah, we could try the load average thing, but why bother? We'll just let this thing smoke. Okay. Yeah, so we're not doing a profile change, but we did change some use flags. So readers who are performing a slow run can have Portage perform updates for package profiles and or use changes at the present time. If you added a bin host, you can do that. But no, we're doing this. Verbose, update, deep, changed use, world. This, by the way, is when it will, randomly rebuild GCC for me or something. But I didn't add like the Golang use flag, so the snapshot is from today. So hopefully we don't need to rebuild GCC yet. Okay, what does it want? Oh, okay. Well, glibc. Why? Multi-arch SSP. Yeah, so the stage 3 build actually isn't just using the default use flags that you get. So, okay, glibc nettools file, OpenSSL, core details, libg crypt, pam rsync, core details, OpenSSH. Okay, it's not too bad. Let's do it. Right, it says reboot after glibc, but we're in a change root. We don't actually have the outside. So we'll exit the change root and re-enter, and then our only process in the change root when we come into it is just the shell. So that'll use the new glibc. I have no idea how long this is going to take. Oh, this is interesting. So I've only ever used emerge without that multiple jobs option. So you just get the spew of text as it's doing things. But if it's running in parallel, you just get this nice little summary line. Presumably everything else is dependent on libc, so it can't run it in parallel yet. But once we have the new libc built, presumably some of these things can be built in parallel. All right. So yeah, glibc isn't actually that big, so I don't think any of these should really take too long to compile. But we're also at the point where sitting here watching this build stuff is probably not the most interesting stream. Does anyone have anything they want to talk about? It's going to take me... I don't need to start thinking about dinner yet. We're still pretty early. I have a nice steak. It's been actually dry brining in my fridge for actually since Thursday night. I was going to make it last night, but I had a big lunch and I just wasn't hungry enough to do a big dinner. So I have a nice steak. We'll make that tonight. I've got a potato to bake, some broccoli I'll roast. My kind of typical, if I want to put a couple hours into a dinner on a weekend, I do my steak and potato and roasted broccoli. So I have that to look forward to tonight. Used to have too much time on my hands optimizing used flags. Yeah, I've done Gentoo installs in the past where I had that used documentation and I looked at every one, decided if I wanted it or not, and had my highly tuned used flags up there. But I think for the purposes of just having this testbed machine, these default used flags will probably be okay. Okay, come on, glibc. You can do it. Moldy Bro, this is your fault. You talked me into the lowering the J flag and then running these things in parallel. I want 48 threads on glibc right now. Come on, give it to me. Well, yeah, load average isn't that high because it's only doing 12. What's my -J flag now? I did 12, right? Yeah, because then I get 48 from 12 by 4. So it's... And I guess I can override that from the command line, right? If I'm about to do an emerge GCC, and there are portions of the GCC build that I know will parallelize out to however many threads you give it. Not large parts of the GCC build, but parts of the GCC build. I can always manually run, like if I'm just going to do that, I can run emerge --jobs equals 1, and it'll override the defaults in my make.conf. Yeah. Ragtag asks, I might have missed it. What's the eventual planned use for this machine? Just powering up every once in a while when I want to do something on SPARC again. After I got my Power 9, so I used to have a SPARC T4 server out at the data center, but when I got my Power 9 machine, I had to take out the SPARC T4 to make room and have power available for the Power 9 machine. So for the most part, my SPARC machines have just been sitting turned off in my closet. But occasionally, I like to pull them out and try things like see what the current state of Linux and the current state of building supposedly, clean cross-platform C code, those kinds of things on different architectures. So mostly just for fun. Hey, Sheen, we were just talking. I streamed for the really the first time in at least a year, maybe two, on Thursday. And yeah, we already started talking about this Christmas. What's my Christmas Eve read going to be? So, yeah, good to see you, man. How's it going? We are watching paint dry with glibc building. Life is lifting, or is life lifing? If life is lifting, that sounds good. That sounds positive. Lifing. Ah, yeah. Normally the life just lifes. So, yeah, that's pretty much what's going on here. Life is lifing. 30 minutes plus. I don't think glibc should really take that long. Now, when we do the other things, we have to rebuild OpenSSL and SSH and those kinds of things. But glibc shouldn't be huge. Also lifting, actually, gradually. Well, that is good. At the moment, I am regretting one of my short-term life choices of using -J12 here instead of J48. But although, as Moldy will point out, at this phase of the build, we actually probably wouldn't get anything better because it's not even using the 12 that we currently gave it. So, what can you do? You see Alicia recently, Sheen? Seems like you guys randomly end up either in Seattle at the same time or Vancouver at the same time, and I assume no end of shenanigans. Yeah, a few weeks ago, I thought I was clicking through streams and I saw a group of people together, and you were both in the room, so that's fun. Somehow, I have still not yet met Alicia IRL. I think he did actually say hi earlier, right when I started streaming. Uh, yeah, I was hoping that he would go up to the Rose Disco when I was up in Vancouver. I guess that was a couple months ago now, because like I'm driving through Seattle. I told him I'd give him a ride and take him up there, but I think he might have actually he might have been out of town going to uh, another thing that weekend anyway, and that's not exactly his music. But yeah, smack in the middle of California and Seattle van, like between when he was in Seattle and LA, how have we never crossed paths? I mean, part of it's because I don't go to things, like I have no desire to go to TwitchCon or anything. But yeah, wait, you've never been to Oregon? Wow. I mean, I guess if you live in Vancouver, if you go down to Seattle, like what else are you going to get by going farther down to Portland, right? Past that, you're just going to hop on a plane and fly down to California. But hey, no sales tax here. So, you know, come down here, buy stuff, and then I guess smuggle it back up through the border. In and Out and me are the main draw. You know, I've never been to an In and Out. Yeah, I know. Shocked face. Are there ones close by to me now? What is your typical diet? Steak, and then whatever frozen dinners I have in the freezer. Pasta. Let's see. In and Out Burger. See location. Oh, yeah, there isn't really one in the Portland area. Wow, there's one in like just north of Salem. That's kind of funny. And then there's one up north of Vancouver, Vancouver, Washington, not Vancouver, BC. Yeah, well, I mean, so there's one reason I've never been to an In-N-Out burger is because there isn't really one near me, and the places I've been traveling where they have them, I usually eat at. Uh, I don't get a lot of fast food when I'm traveling, which is sort of funny because you'd think that's where it would be convenient. Okay. Oh, now we're using the 12 threads we gave it. Moldy Bruh, remind me approximately where in the world you are. You don't have In-N-Out there? Yes, Sheen. Oh, okay, yeah, you're in Wisconsin. I have been to Verona, Wisconsin once. I've been in Minneapolis many, many times. That was the closest I normally got to Wisconsin. Yeah, Sheen, this is a Linux distribution called Gentoo Linux, which is a source-based distribution. So whenever you install anything, it actually just has scripts that gets the source code, and you sit and wait for it to compile. So we are waiting for all these packages to compile. It's very exciting. Yeah, Verona seemed nice. Most of my time when I was in Verona, I was just there for some meetings with Epic on the Epic campus. So that's kind of my exposure to Verona, not surprisingly. Back when I was in my healthcare software ISV life. There we go. Okay, so now it can run NetTools and File in parallel. I should have got the Threadripper for solely this moment. Well, yeah, so the thing is, the actual hardware this is running on has 128 threads. It's two 8-core SPARC S7 processors, so 16 real cores. Each core has 8 threads, so 128. But I've split it up into logical domains to divide the hardware up between different. Let's see, can I launch my little? Let's do it here. SSH M Wilson at S7. So this Gentoo logical domain currently owns 48 of the threads of the overall CPU capacity. I have a Debian virtual or logical domain that has another 48 threads, and then the actual primary control domain has 32. So yeah, but no, this sort of thing, especially for builds that fan out in parallel well, the Threadripper is certainly a good machine for that. Hambot, thank you for that contribution. Yeah, ever since Buttspot stopped working on Twitch, I had to write Hambot so that he could replace words with the word ham in Picus chat occasionally, and developed and tested Hambot here in my channel. But the Hambot source code is up there in SourceHut. Yeah, 1 year, 2 months ago, I wrote Hambot. So it's just in Go, and just threw together a quick little IRC client in Go. Welcome in, Smitty number 1. He says he likes Nix because it has declarative build recipes like Gentoo, but there's a communal cache for existing unchanged packages, so they don't always need to build from source, but you always can. Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, I had actually, for about the first half of this year, I finally took the plunge and tried NixOS on my desktop, and so it was my desktop operating system. And there's a lot about it I like. But yeah, so so Nix doesn't really have the equivalent of use flags or stuff like that. And that makes binary cache servers harder because if you customize your use flags a lot, you won't, nobody else is likely to have built the package with the particular options that you wanted. But I really liked a lot about NixOS, and I liked the concept. I didn't use Home Manager, but I liked the concept of I own everything in my home directory, and then Nix owns everything outside my home directory on the box. And that approach worked really well. I liked the wide variety of packages that were available, but at the end of the day, now it took like a lot of learning up front, and I had to make some customizations and some overrides and some packages to get them to work the way I liked and all of that. And right, so I invested a lot of time to really learn about it. My Nix config here is actually still up here from when I did that. So yeah, actually just a couple months ago I switched back off of it. And so I liked it, but it compared to other OSs I've run here on my desktop hardware, it did just feel like everything was a bit slower. And I know that's kind of a known thing with, having to have a lot of different paths that the dynamic linker is, and loader is looking at for, because every package has all of its dependencies built just for that package. And so there isn't one copy of a library in a short library path that that's already going to be cached and probably already paged into memory. So I did feel that things were just a little slower and a little less snappy on my desktop. But then the other thing that killed me is for a lot of just quickly downloading, code, checking out a project from GitHub, doing a quick build that I know is just going to be a throwaway thing. I just want to test it. I want to see if something builds. I want to see if a little change or like a patch works in the build or not. And I didn't want to always have to go full bore, Nix dev, Nix shell environment to do that. And it was just getting a little too annoying not having everything just build the regular way if I wanted to do it quickly in kind of a throwaway situation. And there are ways around that. So like I would often just use Docker on Nix. I would just do a Docker -rm-it, Debian : stable, and just get a shell in a Debian VM that I could then apt install build essential, apt install git, check out the thing I wanted to do a quick test build of, do the normal configure, do the normal make, all of that. But yeah, in the end, like I said, there's a lot I liked about it, but it was a little bit too far off the typical structure of a Linux system that a lot of stuff just expects and works with out of the box. So now I'm back to Debian stable on my desktop, and I always run Debian stable on all of my servers, so it's nice again just to kind of be back in sync on my desktop machine as well. But I think there's ideas from NixOS that if the broader Linux ecosystem adopted some of these things, I think there's a lot of good ideas there. Yeah, so you're using NixOS as kind of your base machine, and then Debian and VMs. Yep. For Kubernetes nodes, NixOS is a bit rigid for things like operators loading kernel modules. Okay, interesting. Yeah. So it's interesting. Even on my desktop Debian system, I did actually install the Nix package manager. So there are a couple of things that I've pulled in through Nix, the package manager. So there is a bit of legacy here now from my my half a year. Oh, sorry, Unix Pro. I actually haven't downloaded that latest bundle yet. Let me. Oh yeah, I'll just grab the whole tar file. Got it. Thank you very much. You can delete those now. Yeah, NixOS is very interesting. Oh yeah, good old Hambot here. So yep, you can say how Hambot works. A little bit of custom parsing for how Twitch sends some messages through their IRC interface. All right. Well, yeah, we're in Gentoo land, so this is going to take a while. So I think we will probably call it a day here. The important learnings here are that the latest Debian ports SPARC 64 snapshot just works. Now, if you poke at it, I don't know what we'll find that maybe doesn't work. We know already that there are some kernel patches to do some fixes for the M7 S7 processors. So what we wanted, though, and the good news is at least it works well enough to build new kernels on. So as we continue to get improved support for the newer SPARC hardware in kernels, I at least have a working system that we've proven can build a kernel. Similarly, Gentoo, the latest Gentoo ISO is just broken for booting, but that does not appear to be kernel related. That appears to just be their, however they build the bootloader on their ISO. We are yet to see if the latest Gentoo distro kernel works, but at least whatever 6.16 kernel they're using on their live CD from back in April also just appears to work. So whatever else we find with specific kernel versions, newer kernel versions, patched or unpatched kernels, it's looking like we do have a couple of systems that work well enough that we can at least move forward and test out newer kernels on as people start making these improvements to the kernel for the new SPARC hardware. So that's good. Again, based on some of the troubles Dennis was having with his Netra X1, I think, box, like the old Ultra SPARC box, and then plus also some of the problems people have been having getting some newer kernels to boot on the Debian SPARC mailing list. I was kind of worried that this was going to be a have a few more failures than we ended up having. So I'm encouraged by the progress so far. I'm just going to let this go while I go do other things, and throughout the night, I'll just keep going through the Gentoo install. And yeah, the goal here would then be to have my Debian partition, my Gentoo partition, and then my small Solaris 11 partition on the S7 hardware, just so that it's available to try things out on. And so far, that plan is going better than I expected. Exo Ahmed OX, welcome in. Good to see you. Yeah, SPARC content all over the place. Dennis, of course, was playing with his systems a bit earlier, and he went off to go do some real world stuff and get some food. So we picked it up here, and I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. I don't know. Let's see. Do I know anyone online at the moment? Let's see who's out there. Mute that. T2's offline. Are there any? Let's see. How do I find categories here? Browse. Categories. I guess programming and game development's what it's called, I think. How do I do this? Programming. Are they not even? Where is it? Oh, come on. Work with me here, Twitch. Creative. Ah, yes. It helps if I get out of the games section. Coding. All right. Anybody coding anything interesting? Dream Jam, let's go. What's the other category here? Oh, Lego. We can watch people build Lego. There it is. Software and game development. Yeah, I mean, I don't know any of these people. Let's see. And yeah, Pika hasn't gone live yet. Oh, you know what we're going to do? Oh, hold on. No, there's nothing interesting happening there. Whatever. I'm just going to go offline. This is too much pressure. um, Smitty number one, yeah, thanks for stopping by. I rarely stream. It's been a while, so I don't know if I'll have any other interesting streams coming up here. Maybe there's actually there's some bug fixes and some code I need to write, so I might not do too many more streams sitting and watching software compile now that we just have the systems installed. But yeah, I'll try and stream a bit more and maybe do some actual coding, some bug fixing on some projects of mine. So yeah, this has been fun. Get back into the swing of streaming. So yeah, thank you all for being here. Moldy Brug, good to see you. Ragtag, thanks for being here. Sheen, if you're still out there, good to see you. Tony, Unix Pro 1970, I will continue to see you in IRC there, and I'll keep an eye on the mailing lists if anything interesting comes out related to SPARC on Debian. So let me find where'd my OBS go? Yep, here we go. Yeah, so thanks everyone, and I will see you all next time.